What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 270 of the Alamo Audible Podcast. This is your host, Jared Kalmus, joined as always by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez. And today, in episode 270, we're going to talk to you guys about UTSA's 2025 signing class that we have seen lock in with their letters of intent. And most of these guys are already on campus, surprisingly. I mean, I think probably 60, 70% of these guys are already in the weight room at UTSA in the race and enrolled in classes. And, Adrian, just to kind of segue us a little bit, recruiting has really changed. I mean, it took us a while to get this episode out, but I didn't really feel like under the gun to rush it out as I normally would. And like people weren't hitting us up like, hey, where's the signing day episode at? Just because it feels like recruiting is so much more of a year-long thing now than just like something that happens on signing day.
Right. It used to really be this very large spectacle that you kind of had circled on the calendar. But all year long, you're getting recruiting updates now. And now with early signing day as well, you already kind of started to talk about some names and you fill out who you get. But the transfer portal is what really has kind of opened up Pandora's box and changed the landscape of all this.
Yeah,
because there used to be like way much more, I think, anticipation and just work that had to be done. And I think it also it altered perspectives because it was very easy to get your hopes really, really high up on a guy, but then you weren't even going to see him on the field for at least a year. It's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah. And two, I mean, some of those transfers could come in the summertime, right? Like we've seen a couple classes for Jeff Traylor here at UTSA where he's added like 3 to 5 like really major impact Power 4 transfer guys in that summer period. So it's hard to like look at signing day as like the definitive end of the class and be like, here's where they missed.
Yeah.
Here's where they should have got an extra player, because like anything we say could change in the next couple months, and they can have that guy, on campus ready to go for fall camp, right? So it's hard to have those like really concrete statements and hot takes with the recruiting class now with kind of that year-long calendar. But that being said, I mean, to start talking about the class a little bit, I mean, I think they pretty much hit on all the major goals you have here. I think they've mentioned cornerback as a position. They'll probably add someone else. But, all the areas that I would have highlighted, like, instant production at interior linebacker, more depth on the offensive line, as always, transfer quarterback, and then wide receiver talent. I mean, I think all those big ones have really been addressed in spades here in this class. So I'm not like crazy like 10 out of 10 on this class, but I do feel like it's a really solid one, really good foundation here. And I think they did a good job of balancing, the immediate plugging of needs for like this year's roster, versus also trying to find some of those higher ceiling guys that they can allow to kind of develop within the program for a couple of years.
I think Jeff Traylor has sort of proven over now, 6 recruiting classes that he's done a good job of getting the pieces that UTSA needs while also getting young talent that has ended up being pretty good. I think there's a little bit of proof in the pudding in that regard as well, that you can take some solace in sort of trusting the process that Jeff Traylor's built over here with his recruiting and with his signing day classes. So I think that takes a little bit of that anxiety away from UTSA fan as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to change up our model a little bit this year, with like 29 guys in this class, and that's going to be the norm going forward. We're going to try to do a little bit less of like a full biographical breakdown and thoughts of every single player, just because it's not sustainable. So some of these guys we might loop together a little bit, we might skip over them a little bit. No ill intentions with that. It's just a lot to get through in one podcast. And a lot of these guys we did cover on a Patreon episode on early signing day, where we talked about some of those guys that signed early, particularly the transfers. So we're going to break it up and talk in the first half of the episode about the transfers, both JUCO and transfer portal. And in the back half of the episode, there could be a break. We'll get through the high school guys as well and give our thoughts on them.
Yeah, the transfer portal guys, definitely who you're probably going to see more immediately in game, making an impact, hopefully. But these are the guys that are going to have the immediate chance to at least get those snaps a lot quicker. So we'll sort of introduce those names first and the who to watch on the radar list. And then, after Kumbia get into the high school guys. Wow,
Yep.
Jared, pretty stacked. Pretty stacked with 29 names. Oh, and yeah, just to echo, yes, those 9 early sign day recruits are on Patreon. If you're a Patreon subscriber, go back to December and you will find that episode where we do get a little bit biographical on those 9 names.
Yep. Well, let's start things off with a guy that's almost a sure bet to come in and be an instant contributor there at the interior linebacker position. UTSA had a ton of turnover there. Gonna have to replace Jamal Ligon, who's the program leader in tackles all time. No easy task, but if you had to pick a guy that's going to be in the portal this year, Shad Banks would probably be pretty high on the list if you were going to make a realistic laundry list or wish list rather of guys that you want to go pick out of a Power 4 program. So Shad is a continuation of the North Shore pipeline that Coach Price has really built out here to bring those guys to UTSA. And Shad has had an awesome career at TCU. He's produced really highly there. 114 total tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, pair of forced fumbles, interception, and pass breakup. He's played in 42 games. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast throughout the years. Like, you can't just look at a guy coming from Power 4 school and be like, yeah, that's awesome. He's going to be great at this level. Just not a high enough hit rate to feel confident in that. But the guys who actually played at that level and then are coming down to the group of 5 level or whatever we're calling it now, you can feel pretty safe that those guys at minimum are going to be really solid depth pieces. I think with a guy like Shad, his ceiling is super high to be a starter and potentially one of the better linebackers we've seen come through the program recently.
That's the big difference right there, is that typically when you get a Power 4 transfer, it's not a guy that's a perennial starter at that Power 4, or maybe he started at the beginning of his career and then got injured and then stopped starting or stopped playing altogether for that Power 4 school. But this is a more rare instance where you got a guy who was very much in the mix at TCU, played a lot of games, and had some extremely big moments in some of their biggest games as well. But he was a part of a TCU team that went to a national championship game in 2022. Had an extremely good game with 10 tackles in a Big 12 championship game just a couple weeks prior to the college football playoff starting. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of North Shore, where they went undefeated and had a state title while he was there. Top 100 player in the nation from ESPN coming out of high school. Really, really stacked whenever you look at Shad Banks's resume from high school to his time at TCU. Really tore up the Big 12, I think, as a contributor at TCU. And so that's pretty rare that you get a guy with that much output at the Power 4 level to come and transfer over.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the big difference maker right there. Jared, you talk about a guy that's probably high on people's wish list in the transfer portal. Probably a guy that's going to be high as people's favorite in this recruiting class, as is. I mean, how could you not be extremely excited about Shad Banks coming into UTSA and immediately filling big shoes that are now vacant at that linebacker position?
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get into some of the guys they brought in that I think are going to give some stiff competition as well. But, if you had to pick one building block to start off of, it's a lot. It's a big challenge to do better than Shad Banks to start off with. So a lot to be excited there for Roadrunner fans. Next up, junior college edition.
Mm-hmm.
UTSA goes back to the JUCO ranks to pull a specialist out. This time, Brett Chambers, who was first team All-American punter at Blinn Junior College.
Let's go.
So, Kel Hogan had his struggles last year for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he was terrible, but he also wasn't great. So we're going to have probably a bona fide punting showdown come fall camp. And no matter who wins, I think the team is going to be better off for having that competition.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. It's a big void to fill from the departure of Lucas Dean a couple years ago. And so we're still trying to find just I think, consistency at that position. And we had our special team woes. And that's not all Cale Hogan. It was sort of across the board in 2024 for the Roadrunners. But it's definitely one of those spots that we could use the competition and get a little bit cleaned up. Jeff Traylor going back to East Texas to pull Brett Chambers out of Blinn JUCO. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. Another small town Texas guy, Crawford, Texas, Brett Chambers. You like that. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm looking forward to a bona fide punting competition and hopefully a better punting game going into
Mhm.
2025.
So UTSA grabbed a few transfer offensive linemen that I don't think we have a ton of info about. Some of them came from lower levels, and I think they're all
Hmm.
going to compete. For some snaps at the interior line. First up is Daryl Jones. He's a 6'4", 340-pound offensive lineman originally from Baltimore, by way of Bowie State. And the first thing that popped in mind when I checked him out was he really reminds me a lot of like the Vinley Tatafu kind of style of guard, just big dude that's going to overpower you, but
Yeah.
not the quickest, like most athletic guy out on the field.
Yeah, his stature's pretty gnarly at 6'4", 340 coming over here.
Yeah, jumbo
Um,
guard, I guess we can call him.
yeah, certainly so. Certainly so. Um, so we'll see. I mean, you need as many hogs as you can get. I think we've done a really good job of being deep at the offensive line and having enough pieces to be able to rotate and get guys that rest. And so, yeah, it's always been, success by committee at that position.
Hmm.
And another piece of the puzzle in Daryl Jones, I think.
Yeah. So this class includes another familiar name and Noah Lugo. So he was a longtime UTSA commit at
Mm,
quarterback, and he flipped to BYU. I don't know. I want to say like a month before signing day, a year or two ago, or something like that.
right.
So at the time I was a little bit surprised to see him go to BYU because I was reasonably excited about him, but I didn't really see him as like a Big 12 starting caliber quarterback. He did not play at BYU, so I think he decided to come back home and try to find a place where he can fit in, and I think he's probably going to be right there for QB2 to start off with. I mean, I can
Wow.
easily see him earning that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The only transfer quarterback that UTSA signed, and then on top of that, you have the high school commit and Max Gerlich, who we did rave about on the early signing
Hmm.
day podcast. So those are the only two quarterbacks on the list. But Noah Lugo, yeah, certainly a quarterback that we that backup position, man. I mean, it's completely, I think, barren. You
Yeah.
could even say like it's absent. We don't have a backup quarterback, and so Noah Lugo can immediately fill that void and at least give you some confidence that if God forbid anything were to happen to our boy Owen, you can have some continuity at that position. At least someone who has that experience, has those snaps, and not have to you know baptism by fire some poor true freshman
Hmm.
and then nuke
Yeah.
his career from there. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we've been there too often. And I,
Mm,
I think with Noah too, like he's young enough, right, that if he's willing to wait things out and let the Owen story develop however it develops, I mean he could be in line to be like the unquestioned starter a few years down the line. So I think it's a pretty good land there. I think it would have been tough for UTSA to get a real veteran quarterback to come in and probably be behind, a pretty young quarterback in Owen.
sure.
So I think Noah Lugo's probably as reasonable as an expectation for what UTSA could have pulled off there.
No Lugo, 6'2", 195 pounds, real good stature for a quarterback, and some wheels on him. Was a
Mm-hmm.
dual threat in high school at Eaton High School by Fort Worth, but he's got the wheels because he was a very good track runner, 300-meter hurdles, not to mention running the relays as well. So the dude's got some speed on him, got some good legs on him, and hurdle ability. I think we saw Frank Harris jump over a couple guys once or
Yeah.
twice. So yeah, Noah Lugo, give me the dual threat action. Love to see
Yeah.
it.
Hey, speaking of track, did you see that Will Henderson won a silver medal for the track team this past weekend? How
Hmm.
cool is that, man?
Unbelievable.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Good
All
shout
right,
out
we'll
there,
keep
Jared.
things moving. Next up on the list is a guy that I'm really curious what the plan is for him as far as like what actual role he'll fill on the defense. But Caden Meyer, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right or not. Originally from Lubbock, Texas, but he's played at Nevada past couple of years. He's played 25 games for them and has made a dozen starts over 3 seasons. So
Yeah.
pretty good experience there. Not a super strong program, especially nowadays for Nevada. But Myers played really good quality stats for them. He's posted 54 tackles. I have seen him more at the safety position in Nevada from what I've seen, but they have him listed as a cornerback here on the press release. So I don't
Interesting.
know if they see him as like one of that, you know, special corners that you put in the slot, for like dime packages and stuff like that. I think we'll have to see what the plan is for him, but with his background and his athleticism, I think he's going to be a great addition to this defense.
Seems to have really good hands, knowing where the football is. 9 pass breakups is always a stat that I like to see on a cornerback or a defensive back in general.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a good awareness of where the football is and where to put his hands in order to stop that ball from coming in. But I think, Jared, we could use the help at both those cornerback and safety positions. So, I mean, it really can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think where he ends up at.
Yeah, I
as
mean,
long as he
I
can be
think of like
productive.
a Ken Robinson, right? He kind of can float back and forth between those two positions, and
Yes.
wherever the need is greatest, if he's as good of a player as it looks like he may be, then he'll be ready to do either and contribute to the team there.
That's right. Be productive in that, and
Yep.
we've been able to develop our defensive backs really, really good here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got another cornerback right underneath him,
Anthony Panache.
I want to say it's Panache. It might be Panache, but Panache the third.
Okay.
From Ann Arbor, Michigan, and actually a transfer from Iowa Western Community College. So a JUCO guy, where he was also pretty involved there. 18 total tackles, 5 pass breakups, but he was the number 2 JUCO cornerback in the nation from 24/7 coming out. And so, yeah, it looks like he's got a lot of raw talent there, man.
Yeah, it's a guy I feel like UTSA was recruiting for a really, really long time. They were very persistent with him. He had a lot of suitors, a lot of schools coming after him. I want to say that he took a visit to Oklahoma State like the week before signing day or something like that. So definitely a guy who had a lot of options. I think the staff did a great job recruiting him and building that relationship. And I think he's definitely the steal of the class. I think
Nice.
he's going to have a really, really good chance to play from day one, obviously, but potentially be a day one starter for UTSA. Very, very high ceiling. His film is very, very impressive. I'm really excited about this addition, and just great job to the staff to land him. Hopefully continuing a pretty strong tradition of production at cornerback for UTSA. Zay Frazier, immediately comes to mind for one of those JUCO transfers that came in and found his niche in the defense, and then after a year of learning the ropes, just turned into an NFL prospect. I think Panache has that same capability.
So in my time as a downtown San Antonio Segway tour guide,
Always a treat
to
when we get these
get
stories.
you got to get ingrained in that local downtown community, which it was very much sort of service guys help service guys, right? So you went into a restaurant or you went into a bar and you knew that bartender, you knew the waiter, everyone worked downtown, and there's a unwritten discount, and maybe I shouldn't even talk about it on a public podcast, but it's called River Rat. It's called the River Rat discount. And so, like, you would go into a bar, you'd be like, "Yo, do y'all do River Rat? Y'all do?" And they're like, "Yeah, River Rat. We go Segway guys, cool." And they give you, $5 off or whatever. They throw you a free beer. Anthony Panache went to Huron High School in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Do you know what the Huron High School mascot is?
It's got to be the River Rats.
The River Rats, baby.
Okay.
You talk about full circle. He's now in River City playing in downtown on the river with tons of River Rats right there in the Alamo Dome going to see his game. We ought to get a River Rat discount in the Alamo Dome on that note. But yes, there's a very, very cool little subplot there, the River Rats. So, yeah, it's
I didn't
appropriate.
realize that he was actually a quarterback in high school. I'm just looking at his bio and saw that. Yeah, that's fascinating.
I love seeing two-way guys. I love seeing guys that were versatile at different positions. I love seeing multi-sport athletes when we're looking at recruiting lists. It's just one of those things that I think just hints at a good athleticism in a guy. And I think more often than not, we do see those multi-sport guys or dual-weight guys end up panning out and being pretty well at their position.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, next up is the only guy that I see as like really a major pass rushing threat on that defensive front in this class. Potentially one area that maybe UTSA could have done a bit more at. We'll see how these guys pan out. But Cayenne Roberts Day is a transfer from Baylor, originally from Festus High School, Festus, Missouri. He's a specimen of a man, 6'3", 285.
Yeah.
So obviously super physical. He had some pretty good snaps on film in Baylor and in the videos that I saw. He played in 16 games there, so pretty good number of appearances, but his production was minimal. Only had 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack last season. Um, Actually started his career as a running back and tight end in 2022 at Baylor, so that's kind of interesting.
Another one of those guys. Jared also played basketball and track and field whenever he was in high school, but highly touted coming out of high school as a 4-star, was the number 6 tight end prospect in the country. And even here coming out of and then coming out of high school in Missouri, he was the 8th ranked recruit overall. So highly touted, obviously very, very talented. You talk about his stature, his physique, definitely a specimen of a guy. But it looks like, yeah, he is going to cause havoc and maybe continue the great long line of pass rushers here at UTSA. Although it is a little bit disheartening for you to say it's the only true one, or at least potentially, that you see on this list so far.
I think so. Yeah, we'll see. It's hard to look at the press release and then like look at a guy's like transfer film or high school film and assume that how the staff plans to use him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the one that seems most clear to step into that role. So UTSA got the number 2 JUCO cornerback in the nation. They also got another JUCO All-American cornerback
Mm-hmm.
in Armani Rue. So he's a little bit smaller than Panache. He's 5'11", 175, coming out of Highland Junior College in Kansas. Originally a Florida boy. Incredibly productive this past season. He had 6 interceptions over his 20 games that he played in JUCO. 2 of those were pick sixes, 70 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 18 pass breakups. I don't know why quarterbacks were throwing towards Armani Rue that often, but his conversion rate to turn those into negative plays is super high. Super, super athletic guy. And, he played corner in high school too. He had 13 interceptions there at the high school level. So what was that, 24 interceptions in the past 4 years? Pretty damn good.
Yeah, man, it's completely nuts. Those 18 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, having the wheels to get it back to the house. And yeah, I do like those inland Florida guys. There's I think a special grittiness that comes from them. It kind of holds like that same small town Texas. Yeah. Small town Texas in general. Yeah, it kind of feels like that same grittiness. Not you don't come off the coast in the palm trees, but the interior. And dude, the guy is salty, but and had 13 interceptions in the last 2 years as a high school player, and also on track and field. So very multidimensional as an athlete. But we talk about those cornerbacks that have a nose of where the football is and knowing how to get their hands in the right places. It's one of those things that we saw Zay Frazier get really, really good at in his time at UTSA.
Mm-hmm.
So but we kind of developed into being able to break up those passes. These guys that we're bringing on, man, they seem to already have a knack to know how to do it. So really impressive clay for molding, I think, here in this cornerback group that we're coming in. And dare I say, it looks like it's the most stacked dang group of this recruiting class so far, Jared.
They definitely need more. They need more depth, but I think those 2 guys, I mean, it's hard to beat from a recruiting standpoint. Landing, 2 of the top 3, top 4 cornerbacks in JUCO.
Yeah.
Pretty nuts. But we'll keep it moving with the wide receiver position. Jalen Smith was one of the 2 transfers they brought in at the receiver position. A position I think that sorely needed a real infusion of higher end talent. And Jalen Smith comes to UTSA from Michigan State, originally from Klein Cain High School.
Klein Cain High School, Spring, Texas, baby. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, Smith did not play a whole lot at Michigan State. He did appear in 7 games, but most of that was on special teams. So I think he caught 1 pass in his time at Michigan State, and that's about it. So not a whole lot to go off of, based off that Big Ten experience for him. But he was really, really good in high school, right?
Yes.
And, being up at Spring, you're getting exposed to a lot of other Division I athletes. And, the breakaway speed that he showed in his highlight film at the high school level was very, very impressive. A lot to like there. And, obviously, cutting into the Big Ten receiver is pretty tough. So we'll see if he's able to break into the rotation. We've definitely been burned before with guys that came, from these top end programs, a receiver, and just didn't really pan out, even coming down to UTSA. So, exercise
Yeah.
caution and getting too excited. But if UTSA is able to get the caliber player that Jalen Smith showed in his high school film, he could be a game changer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. He threw a couple of passes there at Klein Kane as well.
Oh, nice.
In small purpose yards, he was running, he was throwing, he was kind of doing everything. And he also had some special teams experience there. He was returning kickoffs and even
Mhm.
took one to the house. And so I think we could always use another kick return specialist in our repertoire as well. But Klein Kane is a very, very new school and a new program. It's the newest of the Klein schools. Was just built a few years ago. And so it was the initial birth into the playoffs that he was on that team for. I like to think there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder that comes with that playing in an upcoming high school because a brand new expansion school, very, very hard to break into the respect
Mhm.
columns here in Houston, Texas, especially in Spring, Texas, where everything's just stacked. But yeah, so I like to think there's a little bit of that, but I'm always rooting for a Spring guy. So yeah, Jalen
Yeah.
Smith.
So we mentioned earlier that UTSA went and grabbed a few transfer offensive linemen that look like they'll add depth. I think Trevor Timmons is one of those guys as well.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if he can break through to the starting rotation or not. But he comes to UTSA from Georgia State, 6'3", 295. He grades
Mm-hmm.
out super, super highly in pass blocking. His run blocking, it seems, is around average. But he does look to be pretty exceptional in making sure that his defender's not getting to the quarterback, which is huge. And he has experience playing both guard and tackle at Georgia State. So having that flexibility to potentially be like a swing lineman, like UTSA has used in the past, is something that you can't take lightly and something you definitely have to value if you're looking at the UTSA offensive line as a whole.
12 starts in 2023 for Georgia State. Only allowed 2 sacks and 511 pass blocking attempts, according to Pro Football Focus. Those are pretty good numbers, Jared. Yeah. Does he need to be larger? 6'3", 295. I mean, is that not quite the girth that we want at the offensive line here in the American Athletic Conference?
That's the shape of lineman that I would want for UTSA's offense, but historically they have gone for the bigger guys,
Like,
right?
right, yeah, but yeah, I think you've mentioned that before on the show plenty of
Mm-hmm.
times
Mm-hmm.
that we do think we could have a little more athleticism at
Yeah.
that position and maybe a little less
Yeah,
girthiness.
play with a higher tempo, have guys out in space more, get to the next level and stuff like that.
Sure,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Well, cool. Another one of those transfer linebackers that it's easy to get really excited for. So Brandon Tucker is coming up to Division One from Division Two.
yeah,
He's a 5'11", 225 interior linebacker from East Texas A&M, which was formerly known as A&M Commerce. If
yep,
you've never heard of East Texas A&M,
yep,
they just moved up to FCS, I think. So no, yeah, they were FCS while he was there. So it's just a move up from FCS to FBS, not a Division Two move
okay,
up. But he's consensus All American. Incredible start to his career there. 141 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks.
Jesus,
Yeah, he's a monster. And I think we've seen in the American, I think North Texas has had this example. Memphis has this example too, where you can pull up a really super highly productive All American FCS defender, and they can usually make the transition into the American pretty well. Well, I shouldn't say usually, but it's painting too broadly. But the blueprint is there, right, for Brandon Tucker to come in and make that jump. And it seems like he's a great athlete. Coming from DeSoto, he
yep,
knows the standard, right? He knows what winning looks like. He's going to be right there in the mix with Shad Banks as well for one of those starting positions at the interior.
yeah, I love to see that. I love to see a guy that comes from winning program in high school. I think whenever we talked to Lisa Campos about the hiring of Jeff Traylor, that was one thing that she talked about was that she wanted a guy who knew how to win and had been around winning before. I think the same thing goes with players, Jared. You're
Sure.
used to that environment. You know how a team has to operate in order to win at that level. But yeah, Brandon Tucker, man. I mean, what accolades that follow this guy. I mean, but just unbelievable numbers that he racked up there at A&M Commerce, East Texas A&M. Very, very excited about him immediately getting into the mix at the linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
Between him and Shad Banks, I think it's you're not taking too many steps back that linebacker position. Just a reload.
Yeah, so next up is a safety, Cam Upshaw. He's a guy that UTSA had recruited, I think, in the class of 2023
Mm,
and had originally missed on. He ended up going to Memphis. Didn't see any playing time in Memphis last year. I'm not sure what happened, but he went to the portal and UTSA went and snatched him up. He was a pretty solid player at Garden City Community College back in 2023. Had some pretty good stats there, but since he's pretty much been out for a year, I'm not sure what to expect from him. He's very athletic, obviously. JUCO
yeah.
film was solid, but it's not like Memphis's secondary was world beaters last year, and he didn't see the field, right? So, I think it's a flyer for UTSA, I guess.
Yeah, I guess a little bit of one, not you can never really know why exactly it didn't pan out
Yeah.
at Memphis for him. I don't know how stacked that safety room was for Memphis. It escapes me. I know we played them and previewed them and post game recapped them, but he was a highly touted safety coming out of high school. Also a two-way guy, threw a couple passes. So we'll see. We'll see. I think I love the story of a guy staying within his conference and making that lateral move, and then maybe he breaks into it, man.
Yep, we'll see how things turn out. Another All-American first team junior college player. It's nuts, man. This stuff was unimaginable not that long ago. Darian White, 6'2", 220 beast of a linebacker from La Vega High School in Waco. Another, very, very strong tradition program, state champion. I'm super stoked for White. Man, that linebacker, it's going to be a bloodbath for those starting spots.
Yeah, it is.
You got to love White's chances to be that Mike. He's so big at 6'2", 220, and he's been super, super productive, 124 tackles at the junior college level. Mentioned his state championship at the high school level. This guy who knows how to win. Sounds like he's made a really, really strong impression on the team since, enrolling for the spring semester. Again, high expectations for all of these linebackers. I think each and every one of them has the chance to be a special player for UTSA.
Oh yeah. Wow, man. Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff.
Another one of those transfer linemen is Devron Williams, 6'4", 315, coming over from Louisiana Lafayette. Saw a little bit of playing time there. He only played in 2 games, but he was also a true freshman. So I would say not your standard transfer, right? He was too young in his career to even get much playing time for the Raging Cajuns.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to analyze. It's kind of hard to evaluate him as a transfer because he's really more like a high school signee. If you think about it, he just went and developed 1 year at another program. So I would say the expectation should be for him to come in and immediately give that depth that you'd expect from Timmons and from Daryl Jones. I think you have to think of him a little bit more like a high school signee. But he does, I think, fit the mold of what UTSA has traditionally gone after for their interior linemen, 6'4" through 15, of course.
Yeah.
So, just kind of, I would say lower the expectations for him for this season compared to some of the other linemen we talked about.
Sure, yeah. I mean, he's still got some room to develop and to grow. He's young, but a 3-star prospect whenever he did come out of high school. And yeah, I mean, not sure if he just wasn't a fan of being at Louisiana, but one way or another, you land him and you have another hog in the rotation as a depth piece, if anything else. So,
yeah. I could be wrong, but I think he also has a brother that's at Alito right now. That's a pretty good recruit. So maybe a family connection there. I'm not sure. I might have my order of the Williams kids mixed up there, but that is something to look out for.
Yeah,
maybe. All right, 2 transfers left. Next up is a guy that I think is I'm pretty high on him. I think he was under recruited. He is one of the higher rated recruits in UTSA's class, but these JUCO kids are just not getting recruited as hard as they used to. Mike Williams Jr., 6'5", 265-pound defensive lineman, defensive tackle, defensive end, the 5-tech position from Hutchinson Community College, which UTSA has gotten a lot of really good defenders out of.
Yes, we certainly have.
I don't have my list pulled up, but I think Les Morrow was from there. And there's another defensive lineman that was really good that came from Hutchinson as well.
More recently than
Clarence
Les.
Hicks? One of those guys. One of those guys from that era. Anyways, when I watch Mike Williams film, the first word that comes to mind is power. Like, I feel like he really owns that line of scrimmage. He's not like crazy explosive where he's like flying off the line of scrimmage and just like speed rushing past everyone, but he looks to be so strong that he can really hold that position, play in the backfield a little bit, and he's got a really really good pursuit. Like, he makes a lot of plays on his film where he wasn't there for the initial action, but he chased the ball down after it passed him up, which is the motor that you love to see on a defensive lineman. I think he's going to be a really, really good ad for UTSA. He probably won't be the guy that fills up the stat sheet with a ton of tackles for loss and sacks, but I think he's one of those guys that he just makes the whole defense better due to his ability to win his one-on-ones up front.
Martavius French, sir.
There we go.
Martavius
And there's
French.
more, too. That's just like a few that come to mind.
Yeah, it's just a couple that come to mind.
Yeah. We fit them hard.
Yeah, Hutchinson, man, a little pipeline from Hutchinson to UTSA. We'll take it.
Yep. All right, we'll wrap it up with a guy that most fans are familiar with because, to be frank, he kind of kicked UTSA's ass last year. AJ Wilson, 6'2", 180-pound receiver, originally from Huntsville, Texas, by way of Houston Christian.
Yeah.
Let's see. What were the stats in that game? He had
28.5 yards per catch.
Yeah.
4 passes for 71 yards, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, as we know, like UTSA's cornerbacks were pretty good last year. So
Absolutely.
I think like 2 of those 4 catches he made were like absolutely circus catches, like completely covered up, nowhere to go, and found a way to make a play. I mean, I know there was so much talk that day of like, if this guy goes to the portal, UTSA needs to go get him.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Nice.
I think that the UTSA game was like his breakout performance, but he ended up having a crazy good career as a whole. Houston Christian, he was there from 22 to 24. Caught 41 passes for 1,048 yards and 9 touchdowns.
I think that wide receiver position, Jared, is another one that's semi. I don't know if wide open is right, but it's kind of wide open.
There are snaps to be had for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For sure. Amador is going to see a lot of action. McEwen is going to see a lot of action. But past those two, I mean, I think it's completely wide open.
Well, how much more attention are Amador and McEwen going to get from opposing defensive backs after last year? A hell of a lot. So you're going to need those multi-targets if you want to bring back the glory days of the University of Hands at San Antonio. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you need right there, man.
Yeah, and I think both Jalen Smith and AJ Wilson both have the ability to like run those fade routes along the sideline and go up and get the ball on the sideline, which, as good as Amador and McEwen are, that's not really their game, right? They're more of like the slashing type, the route runners, yards after catch kind of deal. So it would be good to get that skill set back into the rotation because I felt like it was really missing last year. Yeah. Or I guess I should say we got it from the tight ends, but you would like to see it from the receivers as well. Well, cool. I think we did a pretty good job of hitting those transfers. I think the message is clear. Cornerbacks, interior linebacker, tremendous job. Maybe some questions for pass rushing. Maybe another cornerback needed. And I guess there's not a clear like offensive tackle as well.
Yeah. There was one transfer that had a little bit of experience at both guard and tackle, but like the true tackle position, certainly.
Yeah. He doesn't have like the archetype, the 6'6", long wingspan. Yeah.
Right.
Well, cool. Before we do a Cumbia break and then come back and talk about the high school guys with you all, we do want to do a couple quick Patreon shout outs first off. Really exciting new subscriber. Shout out Clifford Chapman, UTSA legend. Sign up to Patreon. Yep. We covered him in my blog post. I can't remember if it was I think it was top 10 transfers into UTSA of all time, which Clifford was a member of that list. So whoever sent that to him, appreciate you guys and appreciate Clifford for the support.
Clifford, if you ever want to talk about your time at UTSA football, we'd love to have you as a guest on the pod.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we got a few guest spots we're trying to line up now that we're in the slow down of the off season and have some more time to organize that stuff. So stay tuned. And do want to say thank you as well to our board of trustees members. That includes Digiteek, John Otwell, Gary and Rippon representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding, Brandon Grill and the Grow Realty Group, Andy Elizada, Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and Seeker LLC, Javan Townsend, president of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Ryan Squares, Watermark Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, and Wayne Gonzalez and the Runners Rising Project. So we'll depart for just a minute. We'll do a quick community break, and then we'll be back to talk about the 13 high school signees in this class. All right, guys, welcome back from the community break. Hope you enjoyed a brief respite from the fast tempo of us attempting to hit 29 signees in a single pod. Some of these high school guys we've hit on as well in that early signing period, but we are going to go back through them at least a little bit and discuss what they bring to the table. First up is one of our signing day surprises. TJ Andrews is a guy that, from what I understand, was mostly getting recruited by the service academies, and on signing day announced that he had signed with UTSA. He's a 6'2", 205-pound power back from Taft High School here in San Antonio. And Adrian, I don't know what to expect for Andrews, like getting on the field at UTSA. Running back position it's always tightly contested for the Roadrunners, but he brings something a little bit different, with his size at 6'2". So it'll be interesting to see if they have some unique looks for him.
It's kind of the first thing that sticks out to me is that 6'2". I think, Jared, although yes, there's a lot of names in that running back room. We saw bright flashes from guys, but I don't think there's any clear cut the dude at running back for UTSA. So TJ Andrews definitely has a chance to go in there and make his impression felt. True freshman, so he's going to have to develop a little bit here, but I love having the local signee. Was in the San Antonio Sports All-Star game. Love to see that. And the guy staying home, right? Staying home here in San Antonio. And so I'm already a fan of TJ Andrews.
For me, his success is going to come down to like how fast is he really in the open field, right? Like, in his film, you can tell that he's fast, but that breakaway speed is what will make or break him. That's how it is for those big backs, right? They're usually not shedding a lot of tackles in space. They might run over a guy or two, but their ability to make that one cut and turn it into a big play is what's going to determine the success. So we'll see once he gets to the collegiate level, how that speed holds up.
Dude averaged 8.7 yards per carry as a senior, 965 yards on 111 carries. Pretty nasty, dude. I mean, I understand, Taft maybe not the most extremely competitive district, but I mean, that's pretty salty. And I'd imagine a lot of those 8.7 yards per carry were yards that he picked up in open field.
Yeah. Next up is a guy that we talked about quite a bit on the early signing day pod, but Amarian Brilland is a massive 6'9", 285-pound offensive lineman from Hattiesburg High School, right there in the backyard of Southern Miss.
Still kicking USM's ass. Yeah, feels good.
Either USM saw him up close and thought he was overrated, or they just missed here. I don't know, but it's pretty crazy because Hattiesburg is such a small town, and they've got a 6'9" guy that's like all state in the state of Mississippi. They let him go to UTSA. I don't know, man. Get your money up. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that's nuts, dude. That's nuts.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, a guy like that, technique is going to be a challenge. Especially, I don't know how good the competition is for Hattiesburg's district, but typically when you're that big at the high school level, you can just like lean on guys and overpower them. So it'll take some time, I think, to build up. You actually have to play with a solid base and use your hands and all that stuff, maintain low pad level. So even if Amarian is like a future NFL guy, it's probably still going to take a while for him to adjust to that, where the defenses are strong enough that they can, put you on your ass if you don't come with proper technique. But
I think it's also worth saying like Hattiesburg isn't any pushover of a program either. I mean, they made it to a state title game. He was playing against the best schools in the state whenever he was at Hattiesburg in his time there. And so, yeah, I think this is a fantastic signing at the offensive line position, and I know one that you're pretty excited about. But
high ceiling one. Really
impressive physique as well too. That leaner 6'9", 285, muscle bound. So yeah, I'm a fan of the Breland signing a lot.
Awesome. Another big guy is tight end Isaiah Butler Tanner, 6'6", 255 from Schumacher High School in
Got to reload
Killeen.
those tight ends, Jared. Graduating a couple of them getting older.
Yep.
You still got Overmeyer, but we need some more young tight end depth in the
Yeah, you got to go four
wings,
deep at
man.
tight end.
Absolutely.
That's the offense. So I'm not sure. Butler Tanner is very highly rated. He's a high 3-star. But he's kind of been all over the field at the high school level, right? So I think for me, like, will he be ready day one to contribute in the way that we've seen, like Patrick Overmeyer, and Dan Dishman, Houston Thomas, all
Yeah.
contribute really early in their career, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't been the case for every tight end that UTSA has brought in. Like they've had some guys that have like moved to linebacker and stuff like that. So I think with Butler Tanner having moved around a bit at the high school level, that'll be the thing that I'll be watching out for. But he's clearly a very talented athlete. We'll to see like how well he fits into the offense.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
All right, let's talk about the quarterback.
Oh yeah, man. This is the big signing that everyone is I guess most excited and raving about. Quarterback Max Gerlich from Austin, Texas's Anderson High School. Where he was, I mean, how else can you say it? A stud.
Mm-hmm.
An absolute stud. 3,095 yards and 41 touchdowns just in his senior season alone, 2024. The guy just seems to be an extremely natural talent throwing the football.
Yep. That's my takeaway too. I mean, he's not gonna give you, like a mind blowing, laser of a deep shot on a post route, right? Probably not gonna put the ball right in the bucket on the corner route, right on the sideline. But to me, like how easy the game comes to him as far as like reading routes, throwing guys open, knowing where the soft spot in the zone is, like the stuff that actually matters in the college game to me a lot more than really having those next level throws is just being able to consistently execute the offense and move the chains. I think Gerlich has shown a really, really good ability to do that. And I think that's why like Anderson was so successful despite not being much of a powerhouse program in
Right.
Austin. They had some talent disadvantages for sure, going against some of the better schools in that Austin area. But they were able to stay competitive because Gerlich, can throw guys open, right? And you're not always going to win your one-on-ones, against man coverage. But he knew the offense so well, he would find the guy who was uncovered or had a favorable matchup and stuff like that. So,
Dude, and that's grit, coming from, an undersung or an unsung program in Anderson High School, and originally from the East Side,
yeah,
DB Del Valley.
Devi.
What up? I mean, that's like my boy, audio baby, like, dude. But
I think that area has changed a lot, Adrian. I think you'd be surprised.
it has changed a lot. But
they got that Coda money now, baby.
yeah, their new sports complex is really,
Yep.
really impressive. But still, East Side, nevertheless.
Yep.
But look at he was number one in Austin American Statesman's top 50. He's a
Yeah.
Dave Campbell top 300 guy. Which by on that note, so was Butler Tanner as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, Max Gerlich, man, just very, very, I think, high IQ and very good natural passer of the football. A guy that can, I don't know, Jared, could compete for a backup role, if not this year, next year.
Yeah, I think the 2026 season, I could see it for sure. He did. I think he early enrolled at UTSA, so he has that head start, which we've seen how beneficial that can be for a young quarterback.
Extremely athletic, was able to run the ball a little bit as a quarterback on those scrambles, but
he ran the relay and track.
Also played basketball, multi-sport guy.
Love it. I just love that he was number one on the Statesman top 50. Like, how many parents at like Lake Travis and what's the other big Austin school?
Westlake.
Westlake, yeah, like they threatened to sue or what? How'd that go down? They said,
this is
from Anderson. He's number one from Anderson.
You will never write for this paper again. Yeah, for sure. There was some of that going down for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool. Very, very excited about Max. Can't wait to see him at the spring game. We'll keep it moving. Next up, Aiden Hall, 6 foot, 195-pound linebacker from a school called the First Academy in Florida. Adrian, I'll be honest with you, I've been burned so many times with high school linebacker recruits from the state of Florida. It's hard for me to have faith maybe Aiden Hall will be the one that finally breaks through, but it's been a pretty
Mm,
rough track record of getting guys out of the Sunshine State at that particular position. Uh,
interesting.
I feel like we've recruited like 5 or 6, and I don't think any of them have panned out either through injury, crime,
Oh
transfer.
God, yeah.
So we'll see if Aiden can break the mold here. It's been a bit of a curse for UTSA.
Mhm.
But he was first team in his district, 64 tackles.
Yeah, the first adjective they used to describe him is physical. He's a
Yeah,
physical middle linebacker in his bio.
but like on the smaller side at only 195.
Yeah, 6 foot 195. They call him physical, and he competed in weightlifting. So I mean, maybe there's a lot of strength there behind those
Yeah,
195 pounds. But
yeah, well, cool. Another guy that I believe was a signing day surprise, unless he just flew under the radar for me, is try not to get too excited with the parallels here. Jalen Jones, 6'1", 280-pound defensive lineman from Cibolo Steele High School.
let's go.
Another defensive lineman coming out of Steele, super well coached,
Mm-hmm.
under the radar recruit. It's
Mm-hmm.
giving Trey Moore a little bit,
A
don't want to
little
set
bit.
unfair expectations, but
Some
I was
parallels.
excited to see a signing day guy that's defensive line from Steele for sure. Can't lie.
Some parallels there, man. Some parallels, man. 11 sacks in just 27 games. 108 total tackles, 44 solo, 42 quarterback hurries. He does seem to be a backfield menace.
Yep.
And so, yeah, man,
Yeah.
gotta hope he can have that same success here. Jared, uh, how open is that position of pass rusher for the UTSA Roadrunners? How soon could a guy like Jalen Jones get involved?
It's a great question, man. I'd have to look at a depth chart for sure, but I could see him playing early. I really could.
It feels like there's opportunity there. It does feel
Yeah,
like there's
I think
opportunity.
so. Like, I don't think it's wide open, but maybe it's a soft depth chart there,
Yeah, yeah.
potentially. And like coming out of Steel, like they coach their guys so well on the fundamentals. Like that they're going to be outstanding student athletes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think he's gonna. I remember when Trey was going to be a redshirt freshman, I think, and like we started hearing his name a lot, and everyone's like, he just carries himself really well. He's very professional. He acts like a
Yeah.
veteran and all that. So, I think when you come out of that Steel High School, that's to be expected.
Well, it carries
Um,
over into film room, into being that
sure,
high football IQ guy,
right,
right? Yeah.
right, and so many kids and that school and that district are from military families, right? So they've
Yes,
either been raised directly
that's
by
right.
people that have had that level of discipline in their life, or they observe it from the people around them, which I think is really cool and really important. But for Jalen, the thing that stood out to me when I checked out his film was his acceleration at 280 pounds is pretty nice. There were a lot of plays where he used his hands to kind of fend off a cut block. And then, of course, you're going to be standing upright usually. Right after that, throw your hands down, and then you find the ball and you jump up and run. And his ability to jump up and run and go chase down the ball carrier was very exciting. So I think he'll be an active player. I think he's going to come in as a high floor kind of guy, and that ceiling we'll see what the athleticism is like once he gets to campus. But reason to be excited here, I think. All right, we've got a high school receiver, Kingston Jones, 6 foot flat, 180 pounds from JFK High School in New Orleans. Another one that I think might be a steal for UTSA. No offense to whoever his quarterback was at that school, but almost every play in his highlight film was him getting wide open and then sitting and waiting for the ball to get to him as it like
Mm.
floated on a super high arc through the air.
Okay.
So it left me wondering, if he had like a Division 1 level quarterback throwing him the football, how crazy his numbers could have been. But he's crazy, crazy fast. I think he'll be one of the faster receivers to sign with UTSA out of high school.
You won the state title in the 100-meter dash,
Woo!
10.68 seconds, and
Woo!
was
Man,
the 200-meter runner up at 21.38 as a junior. Really unbelievable speed here on that guy.
yeah, and he made some tough catches on his film too. So we'll have to see. The hands I think are always a pretty unpredictable part of these guys that don't play in very good passing offenses,
Sure.
but obviously have the speed to get open, right? That'll be the big question mark, right? He'll probably be able to get open, but is he going to be able to complete the catch, hold on to the ball?
Behind Zion Jones.
Oh,
Oh,
you
I'm
went
sorry.
Jones to
From
Jones.
yeah. So we got three Jones. We got Jalen Jones, Kingston Jones, and then Zion Jones. Safety. 5'11", 180 pounds out of Full Shear, Texas, Jones High School.
We've got another Jones because we had Daryl Jones, the transfer offensive lineman.
That's right. Keeping up
That's
with the
crazy.
Joneses in the
Wow.
2025 recruiting class.
Yep.
Yeah, this guy played everywhere. He was a running back, he was a return specialist, and he was a safety. Was really good at kick returning. 34.5 yard average on his kickoff returns. Also caught a few passes. Racked up 85 tackles and 5 interceptions as a sophomore and junior at safety position. But played all over the place. Played all over the place. So, I mean, is this one of those Swiss Army knife kind of guys here on the defense? A la David Amador on offense. Maybe
Mhm.
so. But maybe a guy that you could plug and play anywhere in that defensive backfield.
Yeah, I would have loved to see, senior film from him at the safety position to see, how he developed over there. But you can tell his athleticism from his film as a senior, the running back position. So we'll have to see. I mean, I think he's a guy that has a very high ceiling from an athleticism standpoint, but his football IQ, ability to read the quarterback's eyes and stuff like that, no clue what to expect because he didn't play that position as a senior. So
Right.
either like this is a hell of a find from UTSA and they struck gold on it, or it's like why did they take a risk on a guy who did play that position as a senior?
Well, yeah, because it's weird for them to have him tabbed as a safety already coming out and not sort of one of those to be determined type of
Yeah, athlete.
athlete.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Which I don't think we've seen that athlete tag
not a
signed.
whole lot. Yeah,
Not in Jeff Traylor's time in quite some time. Yeah,
yeah,
not
it's
very
true.
much. We see a lot more often. So behind Zion Jones is the best name in the
Oh wait,
recruiting
wait. One
class.
thing. One thing. Zion Jones, three-time Warrior Heart Award recipient at Jones High School in Fulshire. You gotta respect that,
Warrior
man.
Hearts, baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about
That
someone
was
that's
my that was my first award that I won in middle school in 7th grade. I got like the Fighting Heart Award, which like I think they just give it the fat kid that tries really hard. But it was nice. It
it
was
is
nice.
something to say about the guy that gives 110% on every
Right,
single snap, bro.
right,
I mean,
right.
that's the guy that's going to buy into the culture, that's going to hustle no matter what. It's not afraid to dive on the ground and get gritty
Yeah,
when he needs to, get
we'll see if
nasty.
Zion makes the triangle of toughness in the future.
That's the
I'm rooting for
lunch
him.
pail. That's the lunch pail work that you want to see. The stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Good call on the Warrior Heart Award, Jared. But yeah, but behind Zion Jones is without a doubt the best name in the recruiting class in King Justice, 6'1", 295-pound defensive lineman, and I do hope to see him delivering that justice here in opposing backfields in the AAC. Jared, what do you think about King Justice thus far?
He's a habit creator, right? I mean, 18
Mm-hmm.
tackles for loss as a senior, 14 tackles for loss as a junior. He's a bowling ball, plays behind the line of scrimmage, very quick, very athletic.
Hell yeah.
Um, Another good recruiting win for UTSA. He was getting looked at by some really good schools. So I think he's next in a very long pipeline of really strong nose tackles for UTSA.
Mm.
I think he's going to be able to compete with some of those older guys that have already looked pretty good, right? I think he's like that level of athlete. So he's a guy that I'm really excited about, and I hope UTSA can develop him and hold on to him because I think he's got a high ceiling.
Force a fumble, give him that gavel to hit that triangle of toughness with.
Yeah,
Maybe we can get like a judge's rope to put over him whenever he does it.
now we're talking. All
What we
right,
got
next
next
up
on the
is
list?
I think he's the only money linebacker in this
Yeah,
recruiting class. Yeah.
yeah.
Mark Rayson the third, coming out of First Baptist Academy, a taps guy.
Mhm.
I feel like UTSA grabs like one taps guy every year, which I appreciate. Former taps guy myself. Um,
He's got the longest bio, I think, out of everybody on this list here. But his prep career was pretty outstanding. played on both sides of the ball as a running back, over 2,300 yards on 238 carries, 30 touchdowns. And then as a linebacker, 198 tackles, 21 and a half tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 6 passes broken up, 3 forced fumbles. Dude is kind of all over the place. But you see UTSA write like twice as long of a paragraph for him, just kind of touting all of the different achievements that he's
Yep.
had. Coming from First Baptist Academy, I think he's probably got an extremely high ceiling here, and also comes from a very, very deep football family as well.
Yeah, I think he's super explosive. I think he's a great fit for that money backer position.
Mm-hmm.
I think like when I was first evaluating him, I was looking at him as like a more traditional safety, and I wasn't sure like just the speed, right, to cover deep downfield. But once I saw they're going to put him as a money backer, I was like, oh yeah, that's a great fit, right? I think he's going to have the ability to blitz off the edge. I think he's going to have the ability to, just be a force of destruction out there and hit hard and, kind of bring that Taylor brother experience to defense, right? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
just flying around, making plays and just causing havoc, causing chaos.
First team All State at both running back and linebacker. Team's offensive and defensive MVPs.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It's all over the place, man. Very, very athletic.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next up is a guy that we talked about extensively on that Patreon episode.
Yes, indeed.
But it's important to talk about him again, Mr. Ty Roop, 6'7", 245 pounds, another Spring, Texas boy.
Yes, sir.
For Adrian, coming from Grand Oaks High School, which is quickly becoming a hotbed of Division I talent.
Indeed,
there in North Houston.
Indeed, so man, yeah, that's another one of those newer high schools. But every time they build a new high school in Spring, whether it was Decaney at my time at Westfield, Klein Kane, Grand Oaks, they always do a good job of gerrymandering those district lines so that they get a good pool of talent to their football team. Grand Oaks, man, is unbelievable. I mean, you drive by that place, it looks like it looks like a federal building. It's an unbelievable place. But Ty Roop, dude, really, really, really good at the tight end position. It was 2024 Touchdown Club of Houston preseason football team selection. He did have a little bit of an injury his junior year, but it does seem like he was able to bounce back and still be really productive with 5 touchdowns, 339 yards, 22 catches. So 15 and a half yards per reception as a senior. He played baseball. And he is also Dave Campbell top 300 guy, but it seems like one of those tight ends that's going to come in and be extremely productive right off the bat. He's 6'7", 245 pounds. Ty Roop, man.
Yeah, and he looks just so natural, like coming out of his breaks. He looks very comfortable catching the ball. He's got really good, strong hands. I really could not have higher expectations for him and fitting into UTSA's tight end heavy, downfield tight end attack offense that they kind of like really patented last season. So I'm super excited for Ty Roop. I think he can play early for sure. And I think like given his pedigree, like you look at his bio, it's just like, Hall of Fame at Texas A&M parents. I mean, it's pretty insane. So I think he's going to find a way to get on the field really quickly. And I think he's going to be a really good one for UTSA.
Next on the list, long snapper, John Stevens from Katy High School, who also starred as a tight end at Katy High School. First team all-district at long snapper, second team all-district at tight end. I guess was size, stature-wise, or maybe just better at the position, but it looks like he's, kind of devoted to that long snapper position where UTSA has had tremendous success over its entire 14, 15 season history here.
We've never had a long snapper problem at UTSA. I can only think of like one bad snap from a long snapper like in program history, and it was like in 2012. So we've been very fortunate there, and choosing to use a scholarship and get a guy at a Katy, right, is how you avoid having those problems. So I'm happy that they value that position and take it seriously. And I love that John has that experience as a tight end where he'll probably be, plenty physical and willing to go make a play.
Well, Jared, I cannot believe it, but there's only one name left on this recruiting list. I think we did it pretty good at
Yeah,
managing people's eardrums expectations and not drawing this out into a 3-hour podcast. Very easily could have
we
happened.
could have. Yeah.
Uh, but it's going to be Corey Walls, last but not least, defensive lineman, 6'2", 250 pounds out of Rowlett, Texas. Is it Saxe? Is it Saxe High
Someone
School?
has flamed us about this before.
Oh yeah, we've definitely got a slap on the wrist for it.
Yeah, it's so annoying. It's the same with like name pronunciations too. Like, you listen to like an hour of the podcast and you find the one word we don't pronounce right, and then you want to jump on us. It's like, easy, buddy. Easy. I'd like to see you try, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
But no, Corey Wall is again, I think, a very powerful defensive lineman. I see him more as like that kind of run stopping role at that 5 tech, kind of like that Joe Evans type of role where he's, not building up the stat sheet per se,
Mm-hmm.
but he's able to keep the blockers off of the linebackers. He's able to, prevent the outside bounce from the running back. So a guy that, makes the whole defense better, even though he may not be like our first team all district player. He's a guy that you have to have on the field, and is able to play at a really high level by just playing within his role and handling his responsibility with ease. I think especially when you look at the American, where you've got 2 different triple option teams, and you're going to have a third option team now with Rice going to like a spread option.
Wow.
So having those guys
Wow.
that can handle that role is really critical.
Yeah, a guy that's got the nose for it and has got the speed to be able to chase those guys down on the edge whenever he needs to. Jared, I think it goes without saying is the linebacker and the cornerback positions were really, really hit out of the park. But what other position group are you pretty impressed with from this recruiting class so far?
Hmm. I think the defensive line as a whole, um, not like the outside linebacker edge rusher. Like, I'm still like a little hesitant on that one.
Okay.
But I think like nose tackle and defensive tackle, I think they did a pretty good
Interior.
job here.
Yeah, interior defensive line. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree there. What position do you think UTSA needs to focus on through the summer at attacking the transfer portal?
Well, they've already mentioned cornerback. I'm always looking for offensive tackle depth, which every school in America is looking for that. It's tough,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but if they can find like a JUCO guy that can come in late, maybe flew under the radar a little bit, 6'5", 310 kind of build, that can play on the edge, I think that would be huge. And I don't know. I guess I wouldn't mind a transfer tight end if they found one that they felt like they could make an impact.
Jared, with the way college football landscape has changed, I don't know how many years of eligibility you may or may not still have, but walk-on tryouts are March 17th. It gives us about 4 weeks, I guess really closer to 3.5 weeks to run a camp and get you ready, dude, for
Jeez.
those walk-on tryouts. I'll be out there with the whistle and the clipboard, man, and let's get this thing started.
Hey, man, before we get out of here, we got to give a big, big shout out to UTSA women's tennis. They're a perfect 12-0 on the year.
Unbelievable.
Just beat Houston, I think last weekend.
Yep.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really good. UTSA women's sports just crushing it in general right now at this particular time of the year. Got a shout out to the
softball is like ahead of schedule. I would say they've been a lot better than expected.
definitely
Obviously,
so.
everyone's very familiar with what Coach Aston's doing with women's basketball.
Yes. Absolutely incredible stuff at 22-3 overall. Only one conference loss, 13-1, with a perfect, undefeated 12-0 record in the historic Convocation Center.
Yep.
And so while opposing teams want to come in there and make their TikTok reels about the facilities, that's fine. We'll keep a 0 in the loss column at the historic combo while you get your likes up on TikTok. That's
Oh,
A-okay.
man. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, 15-0 going back to last season at home in the combo.
Whew. Well, Jared, February is not over for Alamo Audible, as we do still have some big things on the list here, namely being the annual Domies awards ceremony coming at you guys very, very soon here. The votes are in. They have been tallied. We will not have any spoilers on this podcast. You will hear the winners as they are revealed on the People's Choice Award Show, the Domies for UTSA Athletics. We're very, very excited to bring that to you guys yet again this year. And would not be possible without our Patreon subscribers. It's a big shout out to our big money donors. That is Ben, Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta, and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdall, our host of Around the Bird Bath, which, by the way, you guys can look forward to Dan's first serious recap coming at you later this week on the stream. Jacob Cavazos, board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, UTSA King Bowser, Maddie, and Home Field Apparel, where you can still save 15% off on your first order with the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field. We asked for it and we got it. They've got sweet UTSA merch. Go and get it. And, of course, the Alamo Audible Fan Shop, where you can get sweet podcast exclusive gear that you cannot get anywhere else.